Welcome to the Family Law Growth Podcast. We interview the nation's fastest growing family law firms to get insights on what is working today. We leave no stone unturned, from intake to the biggest mistakes they've made while scaling to multi-7 figures and 8 figures. I'm your host, Elliot, co-founder of Empirical 360. Let's dive into the episode. All right, so welcome to the episode. This is Angela Jones with Brighter Day Law. Angela is awesome. She owns 2 law firms, and so we're going to learn a ton from her today. So Angela, thank you for being here.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you, Elliot.
So first question, Angela, for the audience, just so they can get an idea of like the size of the, firm or firms, is what are like the kind of stats that you have, like head count or pacing? What does that look like for the firm?
Yeah, and so actually it's one firm. We opened Brighter Day Law about almost 6 years ago. It'll be 6 years ago in July. And one of the things for our growth plan was, we had thought about like rolling up like smaller offices into our firm. I had settled out with my husband in Colorado Springs, started my law firm there when he retired from the military. But we actually met and started our lives together in Nashville, Tennessee. So I had some friends who were in a small office. We ended up rolling them into Brighter Day Law. But ultimately, we have found, with that model for us, that what it did was actually really create really 2 law firms. So I have like one law firm that's functioning at, one type of revenue level. And Elliot, like, depending on your revenue level, you've got a different kind of business. So I've got one law firm in Colorado functioning at one revenue level, which is over the $1 million mark. It's a multiple $1 million mark. And then my Tennessee office was more like an under $1 million or right at $1 million firm. So we actually ended up having to have 2 business plans, and our growth plans are different. I mean, quite frankly, the model's different. And I ended up with 2, marketing plans, 2 marketing firms helping me with those for that reason. But overall, I have, I think, 8 attorneys. I don't really even know how many supporting staff members. We're around 25 total in our Tennessee office. I think we're around 6 of that, but we share administrative staff.
Nice. And what was like your first consistent lead source, or like how did you first start getting clients? What did that look like?
I mean, word of mouth. That's what most lawyers who end up starting their own law firm do. They develop a reputation for themselves and people refer them cases. It's like that very predictable trajectory of you end up where you're, getting lots of, more leads in, than you can handle. So you hire someone and then you get someone on the phone, sort of doing your intake, usually your paralegal, or an office assistant. But you just end up with more word of mouth leads. And then you bring someone in to help you. And at a certain point in time, you realize, oh, okay, well, I've got enough for me and a little bit more. But if I really want to be able to hire more people, you start looking into other types of streams. We all talk, get a website, and, they talk to us about SEO early on. So it's the, organic searches, but, really it's that networking. And I don't think that's something that any law office should ever entirely abandon.
Mm-hmm. What do you do to I don't know if you rely on it much these days, but what do you do to boost your referral pipeline or foster referrals? Do you have any strategies in place, or is it just reputation alone at this point?
Well, I think, internally we have some things that we do, like, we do perpetual marketing with the people that we work with, because your own clients are your best referral sources to create raving fans. So we really focus on our client journey and providing excellent service. And as you grow, and this happens with every business, that's where you get your great reputation in the first place. And then as you scale, that tends to crack a little bit. And, you try to do operational efficiencies. That ends up, creating problems. You lose that personal touch. So to kind of wrap back to those roots, we do that. But, obviously our best employees come from employees who had a friend who's like them, who want, to kind of share the joy of where they work, and birds of a feather flock together. So if we have a great client, we want those clients referring to us. If we have other attorneys who we like working with and they can't take someone, they refer, people to us. And that's the type of referral marketing we do.
What's an example, if you have one, of like a tactic or something to improve that customer journey that's created some raving fans?
Well, I mean, it's systems and processes. It's making sure that clients are receiving what's promised in, the initial meeting or initial consultation. Like if someone comes and wants to work with me based on my reputation, that they're essentially going to get a substantially similar type of service and approach to them. So, and that can only be replicated through systems and training and, having service standards. But also, it's getting feedback. I think one of the things that everyone wants to hear when they're doing a great job. No one really wants to hear when they're not doing a great job, which is one of those reasons why lawyers really don't want to ask for reviews or really don't want to ask for feedback. And so it's getting to the point where you genuinely covet and cherish and seek the feedback of everybody, because, it's only going to be those people. We've heard of NPS scores, so that's your, net promoter score. And so really you're only generally going to hear from your 8s, 9s, and 10s. These are, oh, I just love you, or you're the best, blah, blah, blah. Or the people who are really angry, 1s and 2s. But it's really, the gold is found in those like 3 to 7s, because they're not going to say anything. And unfortunately, if someone's a 6, if someone asks them about you, they're probably going to be like, they're all right. They did okay. I mean, they got me divorced, that type of thing. Yeah, so it's really, I guess developing the ego strength, or just kind of getting over that hesitancy to, ask for the truth, like what was it Tom Cruise said? It's like,
you can't handle the truth.
Who was that? It was Nicholson who said that.
Nicholson. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, you can't handle the truth. And, to get to where, you can handle the truth, and, that'll set you free.
I like that. I like that a lot. It's funny, I've asked you for feedback on things, but so how often are you doing NPS scores? Is it once a year, once a quarter? Because that's a pretty, I would say, big insight of building systems and getting actual feedback that matters. So what does your cadence look like for an NPS score evaluation?
Well, we're always working on our cadence. So what we typically do, we don't send out surveys, NPS surveys. We're actually working on automations now and developing cadences. So like when a phone call takes place, that, there will be a survey like, hey, how did, based on this call, would you refer us to a friend, type of thing, where those go out, or, on a scale of 1 to 10, those types of surveys. We don't actually send those. It's much more personal touch. We have a dedicated client service manager who, makes calls to people. We do gas call blitzes on certain attorney teams. If one of our attorneys gets a complaint from anybody, we ask all of their clients how they're doing. We do have certain times that we will check in. Obviously, when they're first onboarding, our client service manager checks in, makes sure everything went smoothly. They got connected with their legal team and everything's golden. When they're leaving is kind of like an offboarding. But it's really, in that interim, it's sort of randomized. We also, our client service manager looks over all of our bills after the attorneys review them before they are, finalized and sent out to clients. Just making sure that bills are sent out understandably, looking for any gaps in service standards. And our client service manager was actually one of the 2 employees that started the firm with me. So she's got a lot of institutional knowledge. We refer to her at many points in time as our chief heart officer. So she's very invested in clients receiving, our brand promise.
Wow. Okay. So super intentional, it sounds like, as far as there's milestones, there's a lot of systems and processes, it seems, in place for not so much asking for referrals, but being the best you could be. And then the referrals kind of follow.
Exactly.
I love that.
And,
Yeah.
and one of the things we look at too, so it's like, one of the things people are always like, oh, chase the Google reviews, blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing. I don't want to like get too heavily, like we don't incentivize Google reviews. We do say at the end, hey, we'd like to hear your feedback, let us know, if you would leave us a review, or, if you, don't feel comfortable leaving a review, let us know, like, how things are, because not everybody wants their family law business shared on the
Yep.
interwebs, you know what I mean? So we don't, but what we look at is those as what are called not leading indicators, right, but lagging indicators. So if I'm getting those lagging indicators of like lots of clients are hesitant to leave reviews, and it's not because, hey, it's just very personal, but they're falling into that, 3 to 7 range. They're like, yeah, I don't hate you enough to say anything terrible, but I also don't love you enough to say anything
Yeah.
nice. That type of thing. Like you're just not getting the reviews in. Well, what's going on? Why aren't people raving fans? You know what I mean? Great that nobody's mad, but why aren't people raving fans? And so you can take that, even the hesitancy for people to volunteer reviews, and we have people just, put them on there. We don't ask. They just love the service that they receive, or love the, attorney team that they've been paired with. But if we're not getting that, if we're in a season where it's sort of low, like we've got to pay attention to that. And really, when you focus down on leading indicators, like you make those gas calls, how many client complaints are you getting, or are you getting lots of questions around bills, or, and we have people monitor the callback rates. We have paralegals that are actively monitoring how quickly attorneys return calls, not so they can get in trouble, but if the attorney isn't able to return a call, within our firm standard, which is within 24 business hours, that paralegal will close the gap and reach out, make sure that the client knows that, what's going on, or I'll get you a substantive answer, I'll get you in the attorney's calendar by X amount of time. So if you pay attention on both ends to how the client's doing, like you focus on doing a good job, then the lagging indicators typically will show you that is happening. And if it's not showing it's happening, you got to go backward.
I love that. I mean, there's a ton there of like, just obviously marketing and sales is important, and really what makes that a whole lot easier is if you have a really dialed in business and you take care of your customers, because then they take care
Yeah.
of you later. So
But one of the things that, like in the training, like we work with you as a marketing company, and you provide training to our sales and intake team on sales floor. And one of the things that you'd really drill down on that I love is, like your brand promise. Okay. And they've got to get that from, the team, the legal team. So they're making the promise, hey, things are going to go like this for you. I'm telling you, when you sign up with Brighter Day Law, that you're going to receive, you're going to get scheduled for a meeting, and here's what's going to happen at that meeting. And, after that, you can expect that they're going to be tailoring services, and you're going to be communicated with, at a very high level, and we're here beside you, right? And so our salespeople need to know that when they make those promises, their integrity is on the line, that's actually going to happen. So the legal team needs to know that is what's being promised. And then we need to have checks in place to ensure that in fact is happening. And, lawyer life is, you've got clients and family emergencies. And so we have to work as a team to ensure, that we've got that safety net, that everybody is mindful of what's being promised, so that we can, deliver it, and people can get, the services that they anticipated, especially because we're the ones telling them that that's what they can anticipate.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so much there, honestly, for firms listening, of like intentionality and really building a quality business. It's really hard to sidestep that, honestly. Once you get past 1 million, 2 million, you kind of need to have that type of quality. So you have a really nice brand, Brighter Day Law. Do you feel like that helps you in any way attract a specific type of client? Like, how did you think about your brand, and how do you use it to get the right types of clients?
Well, and I'll just tell you a story about the name Brighter Day Law. That was, I had actually, when I went, I was managing another law firm, and I got to a point where it was sort of, I needed to either, they had offered me equity, and it was either go with that or go do my own thing. And I decided to go do my own thing with another attorney that I'd promised if I ever left, I would bring him along with me. And so we had sort of formed, the law firm of, Jones and Smith. That wasn't the name, but you know what I mean. And that's with that super interesting firm name. But ultimately, he decided that he wasn't ready to be a business owner. So I'd already ordered the sign, we'd already opened the accounts, all these things were going on, and I'm like, okay, freaking great, because I definitely didn't want to be Jones Law Firm, because there's already a Jones Law Firm in Denver, among other things. And so I was just trying to figure out what to do. And in the middle of the night, I was woken up, and I think it was God. I have that faith. And so in the middle of the night, I woke up, and this song, Brighter, It's Going to Be a Brighter Day. It was a Kirk Franklin song from like the 90s, was playing over and over and over in my head. And I just knew that was the name of the firm. And I just went with it. And so from my perspective, does it help me? Yeah, it helps me get the clients that God wanted to attract with that name. It's been sort of a beacon for me, just even in developing, my law firm. And even when I started, I think a lot of times, you get in and you start this law firm, and the honest truth is, it's like, I'm starting this law firm because I've got clients and I don't like working with these other people. So I'm going to go do my own thing. And your why is, well, my why is because I'm creating basically a job with a better boss for my own self. We don't think of it in those terms, but if you don't actually turn it into a business, many solo practitioner firms, which is what I had started, ends up being kind of golden handcuffs. You just have a different job. You're just responsible for all the things. And unfortunately, if you don't focus on leadership and focus on growing the firm, you end up sometimes with just a job with a cruddy boss yourself. You know what I mean? Because we don't tend to look after ourselves very well in those situations. We give ourselves all the jobs, and we don't pay ourselves well enough, and lots of different kind of things. So, and people who are under $1 million will know that's exactly true. I started the law firm because, I needed to do something else. But when we really got to because when, I went through a divorce, and even when I went through marital problems with my own husband, it was misery, and I didn't know how to get out of it. And when I worked with my first attorney, he didn't make things better. He made things worse. And, even when I came out on the other side, I felt like a failure. Instead of, I'd navigated, a season of my life toward, the brighter days ahead, toward that next, iteration, so to speak. And that's what it is. Divorces are unfortunate. I don't love them. I don't create them. I do help people and have helped people walk through them in a way that is constructive, that looks forward to the future. And, we help support people in, being their highest and best self at that time. Quite honestly, that isn't always awesome. We're not always awesome when we're going through, a major life transition. We're not our best selves, but, to help keep the eye on the future, because the things that you do, the things that you say, the choices that you make today create your future self. And more importantly, they create the future for your kids. And so if we can focus on what's most important and help support people in getting done, getting through that as well and as quickly as possible, then I think I have fulfilled the purpose that the name indicates. That's like, hey, we're here, but there are brighter days ahead, and let's get you there.
And I like that because you're not, and I've heard your stuff, right? You're not afraid to talk about that. It's not fun now. You don't even like divorce yourself, and you're not hiding the ball, it seems, when you communicate with clients. It's very much an open, honest conversation. And I think that probably helps attract the people you want to work with. And if people don't like that, well, then they go somewhere else. But how, do you tell your salespeople to talk that way? Or when do you start to lay on that tough love / the truths that people need to hear?
Well, I mean, one, we don't work with people who are unreasonable, and so our salespeople vet for unreasonableness on the front end. I've built a reputation, and I would say I kind of want having a tough edge. I've got a nickname of the Hammer, and I think part of it was, the case where I got that nickname. I didn't really know what I was doing, and so I was being very, very aggressive. And that's what happens with young attorneys. I wasn't age-wise young, but I was, new to Colorado Springs, and there was nobody that was going to get over on my clients at all, period. Collegiality, forget that. You know what I mean? I wasn't agreeing to anything. And so I basically just beat them all into submission. And that's how I got that nickname. But, as I matured and whatnot, I learned that it's like, because when you have all you have is a hammer, then everything's a nail, right? That taking that approach of, the answer to every question is no, or let's just go to court is not good for families. It really isn't. Now, not being afraid to go to court, preparing as if you're going to go to court, that's good for families, but this isn't rocket science in by and large. There's a lot of it, especially when it comes to the money side, a lot of it is document marshaling, getting organized to be able to make good decisions. And, that's part of what our sales people talk with. Beginning, we have a brighter day way of doing things. And that is the front load. Like every single time we talk to you, our whole purpose is to figure out what it is you want to do and how can we get you there most quickly. And obviously settling when people come to agreement, when they're persuaded to agree. We like to persuade the other side to agree, obviously. When they're persuaded to agree, that gets you done the most quickly. It's the least collateral damage. It's the least costly, not just in money, but emotionally. It allows you to move on more quickly. So yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're looking for in terms of people. If someone and I get them, I still get, referrals sometimes. You learn at some point in your life that no is a complete sentence and you're not afraid to deploy it. So that can garner you, a reputation for being, kind of a bulldog. But if someone looks like they're looking for a bulldog, I refer them out. If they want a pound of flesh, I send them to somebody else because that's just not what we're selling.
I love that. And it's not only for the right thing for the client, but having that messaging and not being afraid to say it helps you attract the clients that you want. So not only are you doing is right by your clients, you're also attracting the right types of clients. And I think that some firms are afraid to say no to people, or they don't have this messaging dialed in as well as you do. And I think it's worth working on, pretty much is why I wanted to hear like your thoughts around it. Sure. So when was your like transition point? Because I feel like a lot of people are stuck at this where they're stuck in production. When was your turning point, or you're like, how did your view on growth change? Like when I had to do everything versus now I need to become a business owner. What did that look like for you?
Well, I mean, I think I got the idea of it, and I have colleagues who transitioned much more effectively, much more quickly than I did. I wouldn't say I'm a slow learner, but I don't think I'm a quick learner either, and there are reasons around that. But, I got the idea that I needed to do that probably within the first year of owning a business. I went to some conferences, CRISP and How to Manage a Small Law Firm. Those were very helpful in getting that idea. But, there's a difference between idea and execution and what that looks like. And I found myself overwhelmed with a lot of information, at least for me, because I was doing all the business stuff. And then I felt like in addition to that, I had all this homework and all these things I was supposed to construct and whatnot. And, that was hard for me. Also, I didn't learn to delegate effectively for a long time, couple, 3 years, because everything had to be, go out how I wanted it. I think, I'm the smartest, I'm the best at selling, I'm the cases have to go this way, probably in the last, I would say 2 years, I was able to really, well, I've delegated casework, a lot of casework, most casework, probably in year 3. I had a lot of people, but I would still be involved in their cases and their case status meetings and making sure that, how they're doing their cases. But even in the last 2 years, when I got a effective COO, even started stepping out of all the operations work, in to some extent, I let go of too much, like I didn't do enough training, and, I let other people have marketing meetings and different kind of things like that. But it's a learning process. The biggest key is to, I think, be willing to just get in there and do it. You're not going to get it right. If you can accept that you're going to make mistakes. I know I've made mistakes that are hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like I signed up with a SaaS company who I will not throw up under the bus, but it was horrible for morale. It was extraordinarily expensive. I thought, this is going to be revolutionary tech that's going to, everything's going to be automated and blah, blah, blah. And, it's going to be great. It was terrible. They had terrible customer service. It was a terrible platform. And it cost me real money, hundreds of, over $100,000, but it cost business. Clients would fired us over issues with the software and bad reviews, because over Christmas, the software was automatically charging credit cards, like Christmas, the day after Christmas, literally it was crazy. But, when we did this thing at our 5-year anniversary where the team actually made a piñata of the the logo of this SaaS company, and we all, beat the snot out of that piñata. That was our, we were like, woohoo, because we got free of it. That was the huge win that my COO brought to the firms. I'm going to get it right. No, I'm going to get rid of them. And so we got rid of them. We got rid of them to go back to the same freaking CRM that we were doing before, And so
CRMs.
Well, that's what it was. It was like CRM, CMS, also automated marketing. And, now we've got a CRM, we've got GHL, and we've got, it's not all one platform, but it works better. A lot of us, they scare the bejesus out of you, with you can't mess up anything or you're going to lose your license. And you're going to mess up. That's life. That's part of being a human being. And, if you realize that that's all a part of becoming more of who you are so that you can serve the people you're supposed to serve, then you're winning. That's what you got to start counting as a win.
Nice. Very nice. And what would you say, and I'm so curious to hear your answer because I know you invest in quite a bit of coaching and you're very well-rounded. What is the best investment you've made, whether it's coaching or a hire, or what's the best investment that you've made that you think has led you to a lot of growth?
Okay. So, I think I invested in probably too much coaching in the beginning, just out of sheer anxiety. Like I'm starting a business. I never really owned a business before. And not only now is it a business, but it's a law business. So I don't really know what I'm doing. The people I worked for before were very successful lawyers. They were kind of in the PI space, but not really. But anyway, they'd made a lot of money off hurricane losses and things like that in Florida, and started a firm in Colorado. But I wouldn't, I'm not saying they're bad businessmen. I just am saying I didn't learn a lot of business management type of things. Definitely not an on-the-job MBA like I've learned doing my own firm. So I was, just determined to get it all right, and took too many coaches. And I started to mistake being busy, learning, reading, podcasts, going here, meeting with people, blah, 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 for effectiveness. Because if I'm busy all the time, I'm working on my firm and I'm meeting and I'm this and I'm that, I'm doing all the things, and we're growing and we have grown. Like even this year, because of the way we're shifting and the goals that we set at the beginning of the year, our revenue number is right now tracking what our revenue number was last year. But because we cut out a practice area that produced significant revenue and we're replacing it with a practice area that's more aligned, and there's a growth, there's a winding up period for that. We're not quite tracking that growth, but I see it as growth because we're doing the same with the DR straight DR that we did with that additional practice area while we're getting the new practice area online, which should bring additional revenue. So you've got to start to look at what you're doing. And if you measure it only by the vanity metric, truthfully, the vanity metric of revenue, it's a humongous mistake. Also the vanity metric of how many people are on my team, because if your rev per head is too high. I mean, if you've got like 150,000 rev per head, you're not doing it right. If your profit margin is 5%, you're not, I mean, I guess if you're doing, 15 million, maybe that's okay. But and you're scaling, but if you're doing, $1 million a year and your profit margin is 5% and you're not paying yourself, you're not doing it right. And so who cares if you stand up, I made it over $1 million and you're making less than if you went and come work for me, which if that's what's happening, please come work for me because I hate lawyers, you know what I mean? And we can give you a much better deal than that, especially if you just love to practice law. But I almost lost track of the question, Elliot.
No, you're fine. I love what you said in there about, I mean, it's so true, the vanity metrics. What would you say, because I guess it wasn't coaching then, what would you say is the best investment you've made?
Yeah.
And it could be a hire, it could be a program, it could be, what do you find has gotten you the most value over the years?
Well, I will tell you, I think it was the coaching. My current business coach, who's not in the legal space per se, has been the best investment. And that's because it's very simplified when it comes to the business aspect. And in fact, when I got into the mastermind and, started to look at their materials, I'm like, wait, all this stuff I've been trying forever to wrap my head around is all on a card this big. But at that same time, I don't think I would have understood it if I hadn't had the coaching getting up to that point. So, I would say, like, honor the journey. It's like, look for that next step. Be willing to move. It's a season. Hey, I'm in this season. This is what I keep your mind, your eyes open, not for that next thing, but like for really, where you're being led. I don't know a better way from that. I have an edge in which is I rely on the Holy Spirit. I rely on God to lead me places. And even when I didn't conceive it in that particular way, I know that he was leading my steps. And so when I'm kind of like perk up, I see something, I'm like, wait. And I've got this unction to go in this direction, and I check it out. Is this a shiny object thing, or is this something I'm being drawn in? We get these little, ideas that come to our heads, and they're unique, and we kind of perk up, our energy lifts. Pay attention to those kinds of things. And that's something that, has really been solidified in the current program that I'm in. And my current mastermind coach, his name is Taylor Welch, and he's fantastic. He's got a variety of products, and he's building a new one now called Novos, which is amazing. But the mindset work there, I think, just that program in general has been the absolute best thing that I've done. Although it's not a clear fit with a brick and mortar or even a lawyer. So that was just what I needed, and it came at exactly the right time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, obviously I know him too. He's one of the OGs in the marketing space.
Industry. Oh, I will add this on. One of the things that I made a priority of early on was becoming what I would say an informed consumer of marketing services. Because I'm from the bottom of my heart, I mean this in the most respectful way. Most lawyers are just terrible at knowing, how to vet or even, hold accountable their marketing vendors. Like, we are literal, like shooting fish in a barrel. You have to make sure you're working with teams that are ethical, who aren't just feeding you a line, that will help you to become informed about, what your spend is, where attribution. That's one of the things I love about your services, Elliot, because I ended up coming to, you were doing an acquisition workshop, something like that. And it's not like I don't know how to do acquisition. I was just like, okay, cool. I mean, these guys are pros. I like them. This is for family lawyers. And I figured I'd, see some colleagues, and came down and did your program. But it was like, it wasn't even the pull up the hood type of thing, but it was the, let me really show you what you should be. Not asking me if you're working with me. I mean, we'll show you, but let me go ahead and show you what you need to know, and, how these dots connect. And, because what we end up doing a lot of times is just throwing money at a problem, and then, oh, it's working, and we don't know why. And then when it stops working, we don't know why, and what you do is, even with the, again, I'll go back to sales floor, because that's freaking great. I think your sales floor training that you provide to your marketing clients for their sales and intake team, one, is genius from a marketer standpoint, because you guys are the ones that always get blamed when the sales and intake team doing a terrible job.
Yeah.
You
It's
get
our
in
fault.
there.
It's always our fault.
Hey, my guy, it's not me.
Yeah.
It's not the leads, because I do, and that's what you're always hearing as a law firm owner. The salespeople are like, the leads are terrible, and the marketers like, your salespeople stink. And you guys are like, hey, we're all friends here. Let's see what's
we're on the same team. We're on the same team.
Exactly. I swear. But it's but it's really like, working with people to make sure that you're working together, and we do, and you meet with your client on a weekly basis to go over the leads and see what's working and see what's not working. And because you got your finger on the pulse of that, the corrections can be made in a timely fashion, whether it's a sales issue, whether it's an intake issue. Sometimes it's a freaking voicemail issue, answering service issue. It's not even, maybe neither one, but it's keeping that pulse on. But it's like, in providing that education, I think that is top tier. That's really fantastic.
So two things then. It was your business coach, and then an informed consumer. And that was one of the things I was very impressed when we had our call, was like, all your numbers. Okay, we have something to do here. We can fix stuff, which is fun. But so tell me about, like, can you describe for the audience here, because I think you have a very sophisticated sales setup. What does your sales process look like? A phone call comes in. Who handles that call? How does it turn into a client? And like, what does that look like for law firms who are still either having the attorney sell, or law firms that don't even think about sales? Like, they just think that they're a law firm. You should hire me, pretty much. So what does yours look like?
So we do a hybrid model. I think it's very, very important to vet our clients. So we have, client relationship managers who meet with prospective clients. In general, we don't have our, we don't do free consultations, et cetera, that type of a deal. But when they meet with people, they get to know them, they get to understand their problem, they get to understand what products are offers. We have different types of things that we can do. But I really think it's important that an attorney kind of give that a look. So they'll pass information on to us, usually from a 15, 20-minute conversation, maybe 30-minute conversation that they have. That person, leads them all the way through the sales process to the warm handoff to their legal team. But we'll have an attorney, a senior attorney, if not me, another senior attorney, meet with the person, check out what's going on, make sure we're understanding the goals, and then connect them with the actual correct offer and legal teams. And we have a variety of people with different types of strengths and personalities. And so we want to make sure it's the best fit. And I mean, the other day, I actually had a guy call, and I got on with him, and I was like, the best fit for you is this other attorney I know in town, and here are the reasons why. And so I had my sales manager, call, and because I wanted him to go with that guy, if he could get on with him. But that guy actually, he already went into like his final sunset of retirement, wasn't taking on new clients. And so the guy came back, and he was like, well, I'm definitely hiring you. I mean, because that's our goal. I'm like, look, I would be happy to take care of you if I thought we were the very best fit, but I know this guy is a better fit. we're good, but this would be better. If you get this guy, go with him. If you can't, come back and, and then I'll connect you with the attorney on my team who I think, would be, on deck or what have you. And he ended up coming back with us. And I think if you meet within and that's kind of unique to us, I think we really are most concerned with fit. And, so that's how our process goes. It's you meet with us to,
I guess so, like fit from a standpoint of you're trying to do your best for the client.
That's
and
right.
Obviously you want a good client, but it's more sales as a service, not so much like let's close everybody, nobody gets out. Okay, so that's a big distinction, I would say.
No, and in fact, I've learned, and I think most attorneys have been doing this for a minute, is like you have to learn, like your marketing needs to repel the wrong clients. Again, there are those who are like, hey, I'm going to fight to the death to get you everything you want, lawyer. Cool. But I'm not going to do that if what you want is repugnant to me for some reason. You know what I mean? I mean, it can be. Like, if you're someone who abused your kid and you want to have unsupervised visits with your kid, I'm probably not the right attorney for you because I ain't going to be willing to fight for that. And I can't tell you that I'm going to advocate zealously for that for you because I care more about kids not being abused than, abusers getting their right to their kid. And that's a bias I have. And I'll tell people that. You don't want to come to me if that's you, And so if I have someone who comes and I'm not, it's not a judgment. I got my own biases, whatever those are, right, wrong, and different. That's what. But if I have someone, he's like, hey, this is da da da. Oh, I know attorneys who are very adamant about a parent's constitutional right, notwithstanding what they may have done in the past. Okay. Me, I'm like, as a kid who, suffered at the hands of an abuser as a kid, I'm like, past behavior is an indication of future performance. Can't guarantee it, but, I'm here where I am. But I respect that other people view it differently and I can get people connected. And so either way, if you come to us, we're going to try and get you connected with someone who's going to be a fantastic attorney for you.
So it's funny, there's a theme here and I want to just highlight it for the listeners, right, is that there's so much quality baked into what you've done. You have NPS, you have surveys, you have intentionality throughout the touch points of the client. And then you're not even selling as a sales process, you're selling for fit, which then only reinforces better clients and better experience and so on and so forth. And so, I guess your sales process is actually very unique in that I guess you have intake, you have client service manager, and then final attorney say for placement of the client. Is that right?
Whether we take them at all. Yeah, whether we take them at all and what service we offer. Like the other day we had a guy who was coming in and it was kind of a quick turn. Hey, I need someone to go in and do XYZ. And it was an order. It was like an emergency motion and the court had entered an order. And I didn't have access to it because we can't get access to certain cases, when they're dealing with children or what have you. And so I'm like, you don't have this. I have to have this in order to be able to make a call on whether we could represent you. I can't go on your word. So what I sold him was a paid consultation with the attorney who would ultimately take the case. That I said that before you get here, you have to bring these documents because this attorney needs to be able to look this over, be able to present a strategy to you. And if we can't go into court with you, we should be able to help you prepare to go in on your own because he had, a relatively short period of time. But and I said, in the meantime, feel free to talk with other attorneys. Other attorneys may feel differently, but here's what we can do. And I think ultimately a salesperson who isn't an attorney, who doesn't have to take this stuff into court, who doesn't, hasn't, been in front of the judges and doesn't understand all these intricacies, I don't think that they're always able to make those calls. And, and I care about my attorneys as well. I don't want my attorneys to be thrown in, into the deep end or a hot flaming pile of dog mess or something like that, because they're not going to be able to serve their other clients well. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, yeah, we're all champions of justice here, but at the end of the day, we're people, and our peace and our time and our ability to do good work has got to be protected as well. And I just don't think that non-attorney salespeople, some are, it depends on the case. I mean, there's things where non-attorney salespeople think is completely appropriate, but there are some where it really just isn't. And so that's how we've chosen to do it.
Yep. Yeah, and that nice paid consult's a good way to bridge that gap, I guess, to really get them the help they need.
Right.
So last question, and I just love highlighting the fact that a lot of quality and thought has been put into your process. But last question, if you were starting your firm from scratch, or you were, let's just say not even starting from scratch, but you were stuck at like the $1 million mark, knowing everything you know now, what would you do differently if you were at that $1 million mark and you just can't break past that ceiling for whatever reason?
Well, it's funny you would ask that, because I kind of feel like we are sort of there in the Tennessee office, because like the PSPs are, that we built for Colorado, were not it was kind of like when you get OEM parts versus, like Regiment. So it's like we're trying to kind of put a square peg into a round hole in many ways. And so one of the things that I think we've gotten stuck on is like, hey, we're trying to do it this way, but it really isn't 100% fit for what we're doing. So I think what you would do is, I think I'd take a step back, and you identify those places where it's like, hey, I got a good idea, or this worked up to this point, but what worked to get you here is not necessarily going to get you there. So let's take, maybe got me where I am in Colorado, but it's not getting me here in Tennessee. So I need to really start reformulating, like take that step back. Hey, maybe you're going to get a new Coke out of it, right? But you might get a Diet Dr. Pepper too. You know what I mean? So,
So don't try and necessarily just force your way through. Take a step back. And what are you going to look at? Like, what types of things are you going to analyze?
Yeah, you're going to look at, go back to your basic business plan, do your market analytics. Like, you look at the places where things are breaking. Like with you, it's like, hey, I'm stuck at this mark because I just can't get enough leads. Really, is it you can't get enough leads? Or is it your messaging isn't bringing in the right kind of leads? Or is it the leads are there, but you have a sales team that isn't able to communicate effectively? Or maybe your offer isn't articulate. Maybe the offer you were making that got you here isn't the right one to get you to the next level. And so I think you just have to kind of look through, what's going on as a business owner and make business decisions. The other thing I think you need to be aware of is that we have limiters that we place on ourselves and our minds, about and we'll do things to sabotage. That's what I'm saying. Like when I said I'm not a super fast learner, there came to a certain point in time where I just really wasn't ready to grow beyond where I was, like to the point where I would sit in my bed and I'd watch Netflix in the middle of business day. Stuff like that. I needed to do something, but now I'm vegging out instead. That's the kind of crap I did in law school, except it was with, Blockbuster VHS tapes. Need to be studying, but I'm vegging out. Why? Because my brain's tripping, you know what I mean? And I'm overwhelmed. I'm giving into that overwhelm. And so you have to be aware, that there's some, your brain tries to keep you safe. It's physiological. And so when you get to new levels, your body's going to start feeling certain kind of ways. I got high blood pressure at that time. That was my whole thing. It's like, this firm is killing me. I'm just going to have to take days off and monitor my blood pressure. Stuff like that, should I burn it down? What am I going to do? And, and I mean, it really just took like, this isn't going to kill me,
Mm-hmm.
and, I'm safe. And, what do I really want? And what is my why? And is it okay? What if I walked away? What would my life look like? Is that really the direction I want to go in? And is that what I'm really made for? Is that what I'm really called for? Honor that place that you're in. But yeah, if you're stuck, then sit with it. Deal with it and get unstuck one way or the other.
So that's also probably reassuring for those of you who are stuck, is that nobody's got it all figured out. I mean, Angela, pretty good sized firm, right? And
Yeah.
she's still, it can happen. It happens to everybody. So all the stuff we see on social media where it's like, oh, we're just sailing on past these goals. There's always problems. There's
Yeah,
always
and
problems.
I've got colleagues who started not too much before me or got 15 million plus firms, whatever. I don't have that. And I made a conscious decision at an earlier point in time not to do certain things that I understood were required. And I don't know that they were. I just like, yeah, I'm not willing to do X or I'm not willing to do Y. And I just came to peace with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not them. They're not me. What revenue I do doesn't determine my value in this world. And, some people really, need to, attorneys need to be doing casework. That's what they were built for. And that's not a bad thing. Doesn't mean you don't have a business, and don't believe anybody who says you don't. You can still build the structure so you can take vacations and, work a normal work life. You don't have to want a Lamborghini. No shade on anyone who does. You don't have to want a Lamborghini or to lawyer on the beach to fulfill the purpose to which you were called through the practice of law. So just you do you, man.
Yeah.
You're the very best you that you can ever be. You don't have to be anybody but you. You're going to make a terrible somebody else. I'd make a horrible Elliot Alicia, and you'd make a really bad Angela Jones. And we can all just kind of, accept that we were, very purposely, and magically, but wonderfully made for a purpose on this earth, and embrace that and walk into it. I think all of us would be, the better for it.
Love it. Well, that's a perfect closing statement. We really appreciate it, Angela. And if people want to, let's say attorneys want to come work for you, people want to connect with you, what's the best way to find you? Are you active on LinkedIn, social? I know you got some podcasts.
You're active on all the things, but yeah, it's Brighter Day Law. That's the name of my law firm. So www.brighterdaylaw.com, and you can contact us now, through the website.
All right, there you go. Well, thank you, Angela, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.